morning. Good morning. This is the first episode of FAFO and Chill. This is a podcast that we're starting now in which the Chainstack Developer Experience team, alongside others potentially in the future, talk about the various things that we've been building over the past few weeks in the Web3 ecosystem. In classic Web3 fashion, a lot of our free time as developer experience, as people that work in this sort of sector of Web3, a lot of our free time is spent exploring technology, creating cool tools, creating faucets and LangChain web scrapers and web apps that track GitHub issues. I mean, the list goes on of like cool things that we build just out of curiosity and out of the need to solve a problem that we come up with, right? When you're spending a lot of time in Web3, going through the motion, you'll inevitably run into something that you want to solve. And then creating an app is kind of the next step. That's what we're talking about here at FAFO and Chill. We're going to be talking about the things that we built recently, how we built it, why we built it, and kind of dive into the world of Web3 tech. So before we jump into it, I want to do a quick introduction of our three speakers today. This will be kind of the standard three guests that we have on most of these going into the future. Number one is me, of course. I am Ethan. I go by the alias Tabasco online. I am the developer relations team lead here at Chainstack. With me, I also have Ake, our director of developer experience here. And we also have David, our developer advocates lead. So let's jump right into it, guys. So, before we started today, I was on a Windows notepad thinking about everything that I've built over the past 6 months. And, as you're building these things, as you create applications, when you're in the process of doing this, sometimes it can feel slow. Sometimes it's like, man, I'm stuck on this problem. I can't get through this. And it can feel a little bit sluggish at times, but then at the end of a 6-month period or a 1-year period where you're focused on building things and exploring the space, you look back at a list like I created and it's like, wow, there's a lot of building happening. There's a lot of FAFOing. There's a lot of just like messing around and creating cool applications. There's of course on mind a lot to talk about in terms of things that I built, but to start today, I want to talk about specifically what you guys have been building over the past few weeks, because you guys have definitely been heads down building some really cool applications. So, Ake, let's start with you. Let's talk about issues. So maybe real quick before we jump into that, you can give a quick background on FAFO and kind of where this came from, and then after that, I want to jump into issues.mg and kind of how that started and your process building that.
All right, cool. Yeah, thanks, Ethan. Thanks for the introduction. When you mentioned all the stuff that you guys built in the past 6 months, I was thinking this is crazy. Like 15 years ago, maybe 20 years ago, 6 months would have been just one project, maybe, right? And Web3, with all the libraries and all the open source stuff, is just going so fast that you can have a full list of stuff that you build in 6 months. But anyway, let's go back to so this is our first episode. FAFO. What is FAFO actually? I hope some of you guys remember, some of you guys listening to this podcast, there is like this meme that came about a year ago, maybe, as of us recording this in June 2023. I think about a year ago. But there was this person in kind of having this X and Y axis thingies and saying, here is how much time it's going to take you to find stuff out. So it's basically the more you F around. I'm not a big fan of obscene words, so I'm just gonna say F, even though you can say this thing on the internet. I know I'm old enough to know that, but still. So, and it was like, the longer you F around, the more you're going to find out. So this kind of thing, you just Google it, F around and find out. The guy even has his own merch. So I looked for it, and there's like a store selling this. Yeah, so it's pretty cool. But anyway, and this meme was shared by our CTO and founder, Eugene, at Chainstack, I think last year. Yeah, last year. And it just became, and then we had this Chainstack Con, where the entirety of our company, 100 plus people, we went to Turkey to kind of have this physical event where we, talk to each other and work together and all this stuff. And this is where this meme, F around and find out, was abbreviated into FAFO. I think it was by Avinash, one of our engineers. This is the first time I heard of that. It was like FAFO, which was so funny. Like Avinash was our engineer, he was presenting stuff, and there was like the words FAFO in it, and I was like, wow, what's FAFO? I never heard of FAFO. I was like, I was thinking, I know FO, first in, first out. Is this it? No, but it's an A. And it was like, yeah, this is what we do F around, F around finance, FAFO. And I think it took off from there. And it's basically the common, one of the top, if you look in Slack, on what our top term is, it's probably FAFO is somewhere up there. It's just, guys, FAFO this, FAFO that. And we in developer experience team, we do that quite a bit. And I was thinking, if you've seen our intro, I hope you did, like FOMO, FUD, and FAFO. And the idea of the intro is you do like FOMO, and then, this Chainstack log kind of dunks on FOMO and just removes it on the screen. And then there is FUD, and removes it on the screen, and FAFO is the thing that stays. And to me, we have all been in this space for like a substantial amount of time. Me personally being full time, I think 6 or 7 years at this point, probably 6. And to me, FOMO and FUD, especially when you start, are very, very intense feelings, and they still are. They are not as intense as they used to be, because now that we're in bear market, but they're still pretty intense. I'm not a big fan of, intense feelings. They are fine sometimes, but they just too distracting. So FOMO, very intense. You're like, wow. FUD is also like, things are not going the way they were supposed to be, and I have finance. It's like financial stuff. I put in there. You don't even have to be over invested to experience FUD. And then there is FAFO, and FAFO is, to me, is like this perfect feeling. I love FAFO. FAFO to me is, I put the headphones on and I just do like electronic, like listen to some chill music, relatively chill, not too chill. No, controls. I listen to stuff like controls, and then I just faff around and making the code work, and go from concept or from this task that I have, like figuring out something for a customer, and then it just as you progress. This is, to me, this is the perfect state. This is the tranquil kind of blissful state, and it just you put together a piece of code and just make it work, and if it's not working, or you just make it. You make it work, you iterate over it until it works, and then you, if it works, you try to optimize this. And I was thinking about this in this kind of weird illusion, but it's like chasing the dragon. I don't know, but it's like this feeling of you just going and going after it. You listen to music, and although it does keep getting better most of the time, not always. And to me, this is like the like juxtaposed to FAFO and FUD, to FOMO and FUD. I'm sorry, FAFO is the perfect feeling to me, and this is when I feel it's I feel great. This is when I feel great, and I feel very relaxed and stuff. Yeah. So this is the background of FAFO. What FAFO is. I think FAFO has the perfect place in Web3, and now it's still the perfect time to kind of understand what FAFO is and to get more into FAFO. Now that this market is like perfect, there isn't too much noise to be distracting us from this. This is turning into a monologue, but that's what it is. And then this podcast, this FAFO and Chill, is called FAFO and Chill for a reason, because there are a ton of other Web3 podcasts, and to me, they give me some sort of FOMO, some sort of FUD, even though they are great. Obviously guys like Bankless, or Defiant, or Unchained, on the margin as well, and they are like relatively chill as well. But they make me think. They make me, like I put my headphones on and I travel to the office to work, and I listen to them, or I just walk around, or like I jog, and I listen to them, and they make me really focus on what the guys are saying, trying to understand. I can't zone out. If I zone out, I have to go back and listen. And these guys are great at explaining things, but sometimes I just want to chill but I still want to listen to Web3. So this is the thing that we are hoping to get into, with this podcast. And as being the developer experience guys at Chainstack, I think we have the opportunity to. This is perfect job for me because we just FAFO all day, every day. We have real customers who come talk to us. We know what their setups, the challenges that they have, and we are exposed to a ton of different protocols, EVM, non-EVM, whatever. And in general, there is just tons of FAFO going on and building tools and all the stuff. So that's what FAFO is, and especially the three of us, we just talk a lot during the week. And we just decided to turn the stuff, that we talk about, that we FAFO into a podcast and just be chill about this. I hope that makes sense, but that's what FAFO is, at least to me and to us. Yeah.
That's perfect. And I think you kind of hit it on the mark in terms of just like, spending time creating things. And it feels like almost an isolation from, potentially not very happy and not very exciting reality of the market today. You go on Twitter, you scroll through the feed, or you go on, some of these different podcasts, and it's like there's a lot of not great things happening. But when you take a step back from like markets and news cycles and stuff, and you actually start building things and you start utilizing the technology itself, like the reason why everybody's here, right?
We are in it for the tech, right?
Right, yeah, in it for the tech. You sort of separate yourself from like that, the FUD and the FOMO, right? Kind of like what you mentioned. And when you're in that zone of separation from like, kind of emotional movements of the market, that's when you create like exciting things, right? Like we mentioned at the beginning. As a Chainstack Developer Experience team, a big part of our job, of course, is creating tools, creating things that developers can leverage and utilize, of course, in tandem with Chainstack's infrastructure services. So this means that we spend a lot of time doing this FAFO, just creating things and just exploring the space. So in my case, like I mentioned, the last 6 months especially, I know like you mentioned, like 6 months previously was like, that's like one project, but in Web3, really 6 months, you can get a lot done. Like I create a list and I have probably 10, 12 individual projects that I made over the past 6 months, which is crazy. And I think it just goes to show in Web3 how much opportunity there is to solve problems because it's such a new industry, because there's so many emerging technologies. There's a lot of opportunity to solve things, right? There's a lot of problems that you encounter, a lot of tools that you want to create, like the faucet that we made. And that was solving a huge problem. There wasn't a lot of Go Early ETH, for example. Or like the meme coin sniping subgraph that I made the other day, right? That's just like an interesting way of leveraging subgraph technology. So stuff like this that's really interesting. And I think a good example of this, of finding a problem and almost like coincidentally, like finding an issue and going with it, is issues GM, or issues.mg is the URL that you created this recently, Ake. So let's start with this. I want to take the next few minutes, just go through a few examples of FAFO, right? What does this look like in practicality, right? What does this look like in implementation? What's the output of this kind of zone of creating things separate from the reality of the market potentially? Could you maybe take us quickly through what issues is, how you built it, why you built it, and just take us through the process. Like let's talk about what this all looked like.
Okay, yeah. Well, that's pretty cool. I wasn't even thinking about it, but let me share the screen. Can you guys see the screen?
It looks good.
Yeah, we can.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So this is something I really wanted to build for a long time, and so a brief overview of what issues MG is like basically issues GM. But GM is the Gambia domain, and they didn't let me use their domain unless I have like a physical registered address or trademark in Gambia, which I'm not doing, obviously. But Madagascar, MG is fine with this. But anyway, so this is a list of because Web3 is open source, most of it, like 99% of it, 95 probably. There is a tons of things that you can pick into and offer a helping hand. And because I've been interviewing tons of people when Chainstack is hiring like hundreds and hundreds, and looking probably through thousands of CVs and resumes, and a lot of people, especially when there was this big hype in Web3, who really wanted to start in the industry, they were like, first of all, they would go and start like producing, because you need a portfolio. You need a portfolio to break into Web3 industry, get a full-time job, like you guys have here did. And to create this portfolio, there is really no guideline out there, and the guidelines that are out there, if you just Google for it, or if you like go with what the others do and that's what the majority does, is really not great. So it's people just starting publishing stuff on Medium and talk about the same trite topic that I cannot, I can't even, this words contribution, this kind of word salad of decentralization is the spectrum, blah blah blah, and and they just, what is Web3, what is Web2, here's how we came about to do Web3, here's what DAO is. It's just all this topic that have been covered to death in not in great quality either. And that's fun. This, like, if people want to be a little bit non-technical, applying the copywriter role, or like some else community, basically whatever they can, like email person, or Twitter person, or whatever. And that's what they do, and then they put this on the CV and they submit. And then there is the other profile, is if person is more technical, they build their portfolio on GitHub, but it was 90% of it was the same thing. Go fork Uniswap v2, at that time, build your own DX, or do an NFT marketplace. And again, it really wasn't impressive. And at the same time, people who reach out, and by the way, you can always, anybody who's listening to this, you can always DM me. All my stuff is open. I really like talking to people. So anyone who would reach out, they would ask for an advice. How do you break into Web3? I really want to get a full-time job, but I don't know where to start. Which is this kind of weird, this weird part of the state of things, because at the same time, if you look like at issues GM, here there's like thousands and thousands of issues that need to be taken care of. So, and I was thinking and I was thinking for a long time, I need to get some time to do this project where we need to, all those people willing to contribute, but not knowing how to do this, to have a place where they can just start and just go there. Because I'll tell to people, hey, find go and like, what project are you using daily or like weekly in Web3, whatever they're familiar with. Go on GitHub, look through their open issues, and just contribute. And that alone, if I see on your GitHub profile that you contributed to something like MetaMask, even if you opened an issue, this would be so much more valuable than you having on your portfolio like a Medium link of explaining what is Web3, what is decentralization, and all the stuff that nobody frankly needs this in 2023 and going forward, I think. And or the word adoption. So there is tons of work that needs to be done, and there is just, when you actually look into Web3, there is all these core teams, they really need a helping hand, and all those people, they can contribute. So that's fun. And a lot of people, they feel overwhelmed to the point of even not thinking they should create a GitHub profile. But then if you go and look through the issues, there is tons of them where just basic communication. You just need the GitHub profile to pop into the issue and say, hey, can you provide more details? Can you do can you edit your issue to the author who produced the issue, who reported the issue, and like do a more meaningful topic, and stuff like that, and I think the core teams behind those issues would appreciate it. And this would actually move the Web3, forward, move the adoption forward, all the stuff that, a lot of people are talking about in communities and producing Medium articles and, whatever is popular today. Most of this is not really moving Web3 forward, but this stuff here would. So I could, and that's one part. The other part is when I was listening to Bankless, and I think there was Terrence Howe. Hope I'm not butchering the name, and the other person, Preston, from Ethereum client teams. And when this Ethereum leak happened recently, and they were, I think Terrence mentioned that it'd be like it's good to be diving into the design choices of other Ethereum clients for client diversity, and that's have to kind of, at least that's what I got out of it, to be in the context of what's happening in there, how they are solving those issues, so that the clients, Ethereum clients, as diverse as they are, they have a view of what all those other teams are doing. And I'm thinking, because we are all in Web3 as well, full time. And it's full time. It's not even 8 hours a day. It's more most of the time, a lot more. And you have like tons of stuff scheduled, all these meetings and calls, and you don't. It's really difficult to at least to me, to like book a slot for myself, like a 2-hour slot, and think, hey, this is when I'm going to be doing like a review of what the other people are doing in Web3. And I think the kind of the pace of Web3 and the attention span here is a little, it needs to be it's like a lot more like atomized. It's not a monumental task of when you need to book a 2-hour slot and just make yourself go through all the stuff. It's more of you being, like, at least me, being used to the constant stream of like news and Twitter, and tweets and crypto Twitter stuff. So thinking this would also make sense for people to just, go to issues.mg and see, what's the latest issues. What are the new issues pulled in the last hour, or like in the last 24 hours? Just go through them. So that's why Ethereum clients is the tab. It's number one tab. I think it is going to stay here as the default tab for the foreseeable future. And it's pulling in the issues for the client diversity on Ethereum from all the sub protocols that are right now on Ethernodes. That are plus like Guess, obviously Aragon, Nevermind, Beso. Wow, I see Rest here. Rest is up. Okay, cool. Because when I was doing this issues GM, Rest was not here. But I still included it because obviously it's a very popular protocol and it looks like it's going to be pretty popular. And then there is Ethereum tools and EVM clients and whatever takes off, and the graph. But that's kind of the thing. So, and again, doing this, just going to issues.mg for anyone who's out there who really wants to start, I say just go and do this. And it's, you will, like, would you, so even if you don't have a GitHub account, if you're listening to this, and you want to get into Web3, and you want kind of to, let's call it flex, you want to flex that you contribute to Web3, how would you feel if you tell anyone that you contributed to Ethereum? That will be, and you really can do this, like within a couple of weeks, for example. You just go to issue.mg, find an issue that you can contribute to, and contribution is docs or testing, or even just communicating with the issue author and just saying, hey guys, or just saying, there is tons of things that you're just combing through and making a little structure. And then like you'll be the person who is contributing to like Ethereum Foundation, or just Ethereum, or one of the clients on Ethereum. And it is that easy and it is that helpful. So yeah, that's my speech. I really want this to be just, but kind of feel I'm talking. Anyway, and maybe we talk faucets. Maybe we talk faucets, right? because you guys built this faucet, which is got and because the faucet, I think the faucet, it sounds like try to faucet, but the faucet that you build, I think it's the best one. It's the most fun one, definitely on in Web3 today. And did you remember we were touching on doing so I don't really want to be the only person talking, but going back to why this faucet is great, just some background. So I'm 4 years with Chainstack, and anybody in the last 4 years who would join Chainstack, they say, "Hey, where's our faucet? Like, where's our faucet?" But nobody would. It was so ridiculous to the point I was thinking we really need to start issuing NFT, an achievement NFT to a person who says, "Hey, where is faucet?" And then we were like, with David, I think last year or it was months ago, we were shooting different ideas on how would we build the faucet. And we had some crazy ideas like maybe staking, maybe this, maybe that, right? And it morphed from there into what it is today. So if you guys maybe can share, but I think it's the best one. It really is the best one. It's the most fun one as well. And I think it's the most well designed one. It's really different from what the other ones out there.
Yeah, I think the faucet was, and David, I mean, you're the primary architect of the faucet, so we should talk about this as well. But the faucet was a big task recently, in terms of just like, like you said, like kind of achieving this mission that we've had for 2 years now of creating a faucet that like functions correctly and has like a good like UX and throughput and stuff like that. So it took a while, but we came to a point. It's actually similar. It takes a similar structure to a lot of other stuff that we built for Chainstack in usage of API keys and how all this fits together. But really as a user, and I see it all the time, as a DevRel, I'm constantly in developer communities, right? Crypto devs, Learn Web3 DAO, a bunch of Reddits and Telegram, stuff like this. And I'm constantly seeing people ask, I need Goerli ETH. I need Sepolia ETH. I don't have enough of it. These faucets don't work well for me, or they require too much steps and I can't do all this. And it's like, there needs to be a simple solution to just like you grab a key, you throw it into a place, you get your Goerli or your Sepolia all at the same faucet. And it's just that easy. So this is what we set out to build with the Chainstack faucet. We wanted to solve a problem, of course, a problem that we identified through just usage of Web3 and interacting with the community, which was that like most faucets kind of sucked. And we wanted to create one that stood out as a particularly like user-friendly faucet. Now, I'm not the one that built this. I've contributed to it slightly, of course, just like, pitching in my ideas. But David, you were one of the main builders of this with like the primary functions, like the send ETH JavaScript, and I was looking at the architecture today, but you separated this all these different JavaScript files. So tell us the process of building it and kind of what that went for you, problems that you solved, stuff like that.
Yeah, David, you built it in JavaScript, right? Yeah,
Yes.
sorry to butt in there.
Yep.
As just recently, David used to be primary Python person, and I was recently,
I started.
like yesterday, yeah,
I
you did
started
your
with
test task
Python.
in Chainstack in Python. I was like, wow, this was impressive, by the way, because you had to do dependency transactions, which Web3 Py natively does not support, I think, right? And you basically FAFO'd
Exactly.
yeah.
No,
Yeah,
definitely,
but so
think,
yeah, and like yesterday I was talking to you, David, and I was like, wow, I'm moving to Python because I did issues.mg on Python because I really wanted to use this Streamlit framework that they have. It's in Python, and for the longest time I was thinking, hey, I need to use it somehow. And I was like, wow, I think I'm moving from JavaScript to Python mainly. And David, to which David said, wow, I'm moving from Python to JavaScript. So we were super funny.
yeah, that is funny. And it's really good in the spirit of FAFO because that's how I started learning about these things. I started looking into the Web3 stuff and I'm like, I want to build bots to snipe tokens. How do I do that?
Oh,
And
yeah.
so I started learning Python. That was a pure FAFO. And for the faucet, in reality, it was the same thing. Like, it's been months and months. I remember it was only a couple of months after I started a Chainstack that we talked about the faucet. Like, why don't we have a
Oh, yeah.
faucet? And then at the same time, it was, I think, it was Antonio at the time that already built like some prototype, right? And then someone else came along and built another half prototype. But anyway,
Yeah, by
that
the
was
way,
left to the
Antonio,
side.
Antonio, who is now the lead DevRel at ZK Sync. So, hey, Antonio, I hope you're listening to this.
We finally made it.
Good times, good times.
Yeah,
we finally we made
we made it work from
Yeah.
your era. But in reality, yes, it was all about a lot of FAFOing because we started looking into this and I had no idea how to do it. Zero idea. And to be honest, I started dissecting other providers' faucets. I started looking into like how Alchemy sends requests to the backend that they have. And I'm like, okay, they do this. Oh, that's something that I can make work. And then coincidentally doing something else, I basically put together, I learned how to use the Express framework to make APIs or backends. And I'm like, wait a second, this would be very good for that.
Just for some background, this was the time where, for some reason, there was like this huge shortage of Goerli on the market, right? I don't know why.
There still is,
right?
actually, I think.
Is it? I was under the impression it's gone.
Yeah, all the other faucets give something very little, like a 0.01 or something like that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're generous right now, giving up to 0.5. So until supply
Goerli is going to be dead anyway soon. So I think it's even this year, right?
At the end of the year, yeah.
So anyone who's listening to this, move to Sepolia. Move to Sepolia. That's what all the good developers do. They move to Sepolia.
I think we have like...
And we have the Sepolia faucet as well. Yeah, sorry.
We have like 100,000 Sepolia ETH. I have like about 2,000 Sepolia ETH that David sent me. There's a lot more Sepolia ETH to go around than there is Goerli ETH. It's much easier to get your hands on. But yeah, so I guess there's kind of two major components of the faucet I want to hear your take on, David. So of course, like you transitioned from Python to JavaScript and you started making this faucet for a while, and finally it's done now. But there's two components of the faucet that I think are both equally interesting. So number one, of course, is like the primary front end stuff. This is this process for those listening that haven't used it. It's very simple. You go in there, you grab your Chainstack API key, you throw it into a simple text box, choose if you want Goerli or Sepolia. It'll raise your balance on either of these protocols to 0.5, either Sepolia or Goerli ETH. You click request and it sends it to you. It's super simple. The second component of this is that we have an API that enables the same thing. So if you want to programmatically query this faucet, which as far as I understand isn't possible with the majority of other faucets I've seen. But if you want to programmatically query this faucet, let's say you want to run a Python script that does it every 24 hours automatically, right? With a different wallet because you're using up the Goerli ETH or Sepolia ETH, right? Then you can do that with this faucet. So it has a lot of depth to it, just past like the actual simple front end that you see when you go to the website. So David, walk us through the process of building it and separating it into these two components and using JavaScript. I mean, I am not a big fan of JavaScript. I gotta say, I'm probably still stuck in my Python phase, but I use it every now and then, and it seems to work for stuff like this. It's good, especially for like the API stuff.
Yeah,
I
really
we're all going to end up on Rust anyway. I think
that's my
a couple of years from us, just Rust.
That's my next step. But yeah, it really came a little bit out of just FAFOing and trying around. The main issues that we had in the beginning was like, how do we protect it? How do I avoid, giving out keys and things like that? And until I figure out how to build backends like that. And so I put out my trusty Express.js framework, and I built a couple of endpoints, and then I just tried to build the logic behind it. And I really tried to build these type of things as modular as possible. You mentioned there is a lot of files going back and forth. I try to make it really modular this way, because tomorrow, if you want to add BNB, for example, someone today was already asking, hey, what about BNB? Can we add it? I was like, yeah, sure. Just find the test BNB. We can just clone the module and we already have it. So I really went out that way. And then it's interesting because I feel like at the beginning was really like, you guys know the Jenga game? The little pieces, the little tower pieces that hangs around like barely, and you touch it and everything falls. that's exactly how I feel about this thing. Is like I really feel like I somehow put it together just in the right spot, and I don't want to touch it anymore. But then Ethan and I were already working in the past couple of days to make good improvements that hopefully we'll be able to ship soon. That is going to improve the UX even more. So it's it's a work in progress, but it was fun, and it's interesting because the thing of the API is really cool. I think it's something that really makes a difference, and it's really fun to work with, and it's something that was a complete 100% incident because it was just in the spirit of shipping faster that came out the idea of doing just the API. So it was absolutely not planned. And then our DevOps lead Anton was like, "Let's just ship it. Let's just make an API out of it." And I'm like, "That's a great idea. Why didn't we think about that?" So that was funny.
That's dope.
Yeah, shipping fast. I think. Yeah. I just really want to touch on the shipping fast is key. Shipping fast is really key. I was recently, like this week, I think, or last week, I was listening to this, like, Dan Romero, the founder, like ex Coinbase person, and the founder of Farcaster, this decentralized social network protocol. He was doing the A16Z like presentation. You can find it on A16Z crypto channel. What Farcaster is, how to grow a protocol, and a lot of stuff. And in there, he mentioned that it's Coinbase. I think it was a picture from Coinbase, from his days in Coinbase, where there will be like two different pictures of how you build a car. One is you go like from a blob to a full car, and then you drive it, which is not the correct way. But the correct way is you go from a blob like to a skateboard, and then the skateboard morphs into a bicycle, then into a bike, and then into a car, right? So right from the first steps, you can actually move from point A from point B on a skateboard, right? And that's how the faucet, the way the faucet came about, and the way this podcast is coming about, by the way. I always tell, we have those team things like twice a week. And one of the things I always tell, low effort, guys, go with the lowest effort. Lowest effort, right? But max result, right? So we need something that's just ship fast, iterate, ship fast, iterate, and there's a lot of creativity in this process, and that's how I think the faucet came about in being as good as it is. That's what I think.
Yeah, that's pretty
it's
much
just,
the process.
let's ship what we have, right, and go from there. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it was an interesting process to watch, and of course, I wish I could have been there building it foundationally, but it was, I'm of the opinion that every website should be an API. I wish they were. Most websites aren't, because when I was building my first project, or not my first project, but one of my first projects, it was a tool. It was a web app that lets you benchmark a node. Right, so you put an RPC endpoint, it runs it through a bunch of tests, and it returns like latency results and location and cloud provider and like a bunch of information about the node, the RPC endpoint. And when I made it, I was like, at that point, this was like, maybe 2 years ago, I barely knew what an API was. Like, if you asked me what is an API, I could very vaguely tell you. And I was like, it would be cool to have this in an API. So I did it, and having a one endpoint API that just runs one script. Now it's like, well, that's easy. I mean, we created basically something that's much more complicated than that in a few days with a faucet. But back then, it took me like 2 weeks to figure it out. I like used Django, and I used all these Python frameworks because, of course, I was too scared to move to JavaScript because I didn't know how to work it. So I was using Python and all these different frameworks, and then eventually I figured it out, and I got it to where you could query it with an endpoint that you put into the URL. And that, because I didn't know anything about query parameters, all I knew is that you can throw it into the URL and you get a response programmatically.
Oh, nice.
So I finally figured it out. But I think that having APIs for things, especially in the case of like things like a faucet, right, where you're like getting things, and it's usually in most cases bound by like not so great front ends. This is a super valuable tool for people, for developers, right? Right. Like a front end faucet is great. but being able to like have it built into your dApp where you can constantly be filled with Gorilla ETH and Zipola ETH for exactly what you need to build without having to like continuously go and get your API key, copy it, throw it into the front end and get it every single time. I think it's a game changer in terms of like faucet accessibility. You know, recently some of the big changes that we've been making is like creating ways to further sort of incentivize usage of the faucet, right? And like get more out of it. Because right now, like most of what we get out of it is like you get an API key, which you sign up for Chainstack to get, and like that's our primary benefit. Other than that, there's not a huge amount that we're gaining from it. But you know, when you look at like QuickNode's API, or sorry, not their API, their faucet, what they do is they do tweet verification. So to get funds from QuickNode's faucet, you have to write a tweet with, I think it's like the first 12 characters of your wallet, and a link to the faucet, right? So if you Google, if you go into your Twitter search and you search Gorilla ETH or QuickNode, and you go to latest, you'll find thousands. I don't know who all these people are, but there are thousands of people every single day querying QuickNode's faucet for Gorilla ETH, and you can see it on Twitter, which is insane. And it's like, well, that's just free marketing. I mean, you know, anybody that sees these tweets, they see QuickNode, they click on it, they go to QuickNode, they sign up, and I mean, it's just like it's an easy way to get like tweets about Chainstack. So for a long time, this was like a difficult challenge for us. It was like, well, how do we, with what we've built so far, how do we integrate Twitter authentication? Right? Do we replace API authentication, like API key authentication with that? Do we add it on top of that? And what we're building now, and this is what we've been actually working on this week, is a way that kind of gives the best of both worlds here. So what will hopefully be implemented in the faucet in the future, in the near future, is that you'll query the faucet on the front end, right? You'll say, here's my API key, I want 0.5 Gorilla ETH, and then a pop-up will show. It'll say, do you want an extra 0.35 Gorilla ETH? If you do, then tweet this, and the tweet will contain a hash that the script generates, a 12-character hash. It tweets it. You put in the link to the tweet back into the front end. We have an API that'll scrape it and make sure that the correct hash is present, and then it gives you the ETH, right? And then it's as simple as that. Now we have both Twitter authentication and in-platform API authentication. And stuff like this, right? It's stuff like figuring out ways to, because once we get to this end product, right? Twitter authentication plus API authentication plus an actual API to query it, we now have a tool that solves like all the problems that we encountered using faucets just day to day, right? And those problems were things like, well, this faucet doesn't have an API, so I can't query this programmatically, which is kind of a problem for some people. Or this faucet isn't simple enough, right? Or, I want Twitter authentication, or this doesn't give me enough. I mean, all of these problems are effectively being solved with what we're building out here. And I think this captures the essence almost of kind of what we're talking about today, which is just like, messing around, like spending some time creating applications and like solving problems that you come across. So I think that the faucet is a really great example of this, as well as issues.mg. I mean, issues.mg, of course, is a perfect example of this. And I think it's a huge utility as well, because if you're a developer and you want to contribute to things, I've had the privilege of course, being able to contribute to Ethereum.org and Filecoin, these different protocols on behalf of Chainstack. But as a new developer, when you're getting into the space and like, it can take a lot of time to like go through these different repositories. Maybe you don't even know what repositories to look at. And I think issues.mg is just another example of like, here's a problem that developers face, that users face, and here's a solution to it, right? And you just like throw it out, like ship fast, like you said. Low effort, max result. I think these are all really good messages. It's perfect. So I think these two products, and like, man, like I said, I have a huge list of things.
We have tons. Yeah, we have tons of products. It's just
even recently, just a few weeks ago, I submitted a patent. Yeah, we can stretch that across a few episodes. But a few weeks ago, I submitted a patent for a project that I've been building for something that I had just been building on the side that I had FAFO'd essentially.
Okay.
And the patent process in the US is a nightmare, and it costs a lot of money. I probably put $2,000 into it, but it's worth it because I see it as sort of like an investment and just like something that might happen. But I see this as another example of that, where as I use Web3, like Ake mentioned earlier. I'm more than full time. It's like 7 days a week for me, like 13 hours a day. Wake up, do Web3, go to sleep, then wake up, do Web3. I mean, it's that's the commitment that a lot of people have to Web3. And spending all this time in Web3, I came across the issue of like, we have all these cool developer tooling applications. We have this and that. We have like cool DeFi products like Uniswap V4 now. And on Solana, we have 1 million applications that helps developers and new startups. But like, what's the big issue for Web3? Right? How do we solve that? The big issue for Web3 is that there's a huge onboarding issue, right? Of course, there's a multitude of issues, but in my opinion, the biggest issue that's stopping Web3 from actually becoming accessible is like getting started, right? Actually utilizing Web3. To do that right now, you create a MetaMask wallet, right? Or a Trust wallet. You write down a 12 seed phrase on a piece of paper that you're supposed to store in a fire safe, and then recover it whenever you lose your wallet. And then in the same time, you need to like not click on any bad links, or else you lose all the money that you ever put in Web3. I mean, this is not a good UX, right? Any company that was creating a product that they branded as this would not be doing well, because it's just like not sustainable, right? You can't adopt people. You can't get like, what did you say is like, the 65-year-old mother of four is not going to know how to navigate MetaMask or like interact with Uniswap. I mean, these are just things that are totally inaccessible for like 99% of the population. So the thing that I thought of was like, yeah, even every day I'm figuring out new ways to do it, solving the problems. But in trying to solve, and this is a big problem to solve, right? This is something that not one product will ever solve. But I was like, well, what's the best way that I can create a solution to this problem with what I know and my somewhat limited skill set? And I was like, well, I think, in my opinion, biometrics are the future of stuff like this, right? What is one way that you can onboard into Web3 without managing a seed phrase, and without managing secrets and like not clicking links and stuff like this? Well, it's through biometrics, right? Everybody has a palm print. Everybody has a face. Why aren't we using these intrinsic parts of everybody to count as authentication features, right? Why don't we use fingerprints or palm prints as private keys? Why don't we use faces or stuff like this as public keys, right? These are organic features of people that serve very similar functions to these, computerized private key, public key combinations. So I was like, okay, well, this is like kind of an out there idea, like creating a link between, your physical identity and like your digital Web3 identity. So like, well, how do I achieve this? And in short, I could explain it for an hour, but it's a very complicated process that goes through assigning a public key to your face. It has this like, very decentralized friendly database that it stores face data in and assigns that to a public key. And then it gets like this hash from your palm print that it can take with any standard 720p camera, hashes that and uses that to encrypt a private key, which can only be decrypted with the features of your palm, which you can then use essentially in practice. What this enables is that you could, for example, go to the bank or the grocery store and purchase, a box of Cheerios, and do it on chain with nothing more than like walking by a camera and waving your hand essentially. And that's your public key and private key authentication in like less than a second. So this enables like a Web2 like experience in terms of speed and efficiency in Web3 without any of the risks associated with like managing a wallet, like headaches with managing private keys and stuff like this, because it's all intrinsic to you as an individual. So this kind of sounds like a dystopian crazy idea, but this is something that I spent a long time building, and eventually
cool.
created it was a long project. I actually originally started it back in like probably maybe a year ago at this point, where I was just building it a little bit every week on the weekends, stuff like that. And then in April, I finally got to a point where like I had a process down. I knew how this worked. This is how I want it to work. I consulted with people like previously, before Silicon Valley Bank fell. I consulted with their chief of technology, or their
nice.
main technology guy. I have a personal connection with him, and I went on a meeting. And I pitched the whole thing and got some really great feedback. So then, after iterating a little bit with with this feedback from these industry leaders in technology, I threw it into a patent. I had a very cheap like overseas patent lawyer draft something up, because I don't know legal stuff. And I had drawings drafted and I sent it in not too long ago, back in April. So it's currently pending. It's just something on the side, and we'll see what happens to it. But it's yet another example alongside issues at IMG and the faucet of just like finding a problem. Here's a solution to it. Let's create it. And that's that. So that was a process that I went through.
It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
Bit of overkill.
No, but I think so it plugs in. What I like about this is it plugs into the existing infrastructure for Web3, right? So you mentioned, although I'm thinking, so you mentioned a person going to, I don't know, 7-Eleven or whatever, just buying stuff, and then you scan So how would it's not part of your solution because your solution is great and plugs into the existing infrastructure. But I was thinking, so now that your part is done, how would it go from there? As in, would this be a gasless transaction? Would this be, because I don't think you'd even if it's in a rollup, now that this private key, the public key combination is extracted from the palm of the person scanning this, like at 7-Eleven. What's on the 7-Eleven side to make this transaction quick?
So
A Chainstack
this is
node.
where a Chainstack node is number one.
Yeah,
of
obviously,
course.
but
I think this is where blockchain solutions, because like, when you look at current blockchains, almost all of them, even like, of course, Ethereum is totally out of the question in terms of like viable payment methods or like any real world use case where like you need to pay for something or execute a transaction. Because like another part of the solution is just like public authentication. So like let's say you're walking to an event or something that doesn't need a transaction because you can just scan somebody's face and you get their public key, and then you can read all of their on-chain data anyways. So you don't need a transaction in that case. But
no.
when you are making a transaction, let's say in a payment scenario with the system that I made, what that looks like is that number one, of course, I'd like it to use Solana. That would be my preference because Solana is you send a transaction
Okay.
and it's a 0.01 second confirmation and the fees are virtually zero, and it's perfect. And Solana is like the blockchain for solutions like this, in my opinion, at least. And you have some like rollups and layer twos and stuff like that where the fees are lower than Ethereum. You get to like $1 maybe or like 20 cents, or even like Polygon can get down to like 5 cents, a few cents, and the confirmations are a minute, maybe a little bit less, a few seconds. But even that, like anything over a 2-second confirmation, I would say is too long for consumer use cases for payments, right? Unless you had an alternative system of like pre-confirming the transaction, actually kind of similar to what we do with the faucet. But you'd have to kind of get creative with the way that you handle that. So with something like this, if I were to actually implement it, which right now it's just a patent, which means that I'll see what the U.S. government thinks of it. If they like it, then maybe I'll try to license it or something.
Well,
something with it.
I would think the U.S. government will definitely like it.
Oh yeah.
Because this is an idea, or any government. I'm not saying yet. Any government in the world will like it. And so years and years ago, you were building stuff on EOS, and there are other projects building on this. And one of the projects was actually trying to do something similar on EOS. And what's great about this it's the use case that we've just been talking about, like first world developed countries. It's not the only use case. There are a lot of people similar to what there are a lot of unbanked people in the world, in other parts of the world, for example, Africa. There are also a lot of people who don't have an idea and they don't have a way to actually do an idea. So your solution would work for that as well. This could be we can talk a lot about this, so I'm not gonna dive into it. But yeah, that's a good thing. Yeah, and Solana actually makes sense. Why did I not think of Solana? Yeah, when you mentioned
awesome
Solana,
solution.
I think it'll be perfect. Yeah.
Right. I spent a lot of time in the Solana community, and I spent a lot of time doing Solana transactions. And every time I do a Solana transaction, it's like, wow, this is this is a night and day between Ethereum. I mean, it's like literally instant. It's like you click send and it's done, and it's free basically. I mean, it's like 0.001 cents or something, which is perfect for solutions like this.
First time I did a transaction on Solana, I couldn't believe it. I don't think a centralized server would give me the response as fast as the Solana node is giving to me. It's just crazy. To me, it's just crazy.
It's even faster when you use Chainstack Solana nodes. It's 10 times
Yes,
faster.
obviously.
Faster.
Obviously.
But yeah, so it was, like we've been talking about so far today is, the point that I convey to a lot of developers. I did this interview with Crypto Jobs List recently, where we talked a lot about just like building things and like how that relates to a career and stuff like that. And what I usually like to convey is that if you can do anything in Web3, even if you aren't working for a company, right? All of us are working for Chainstack, but even if you're independent, the best thing that you can do for your career and for learning, even if it's not anything that'll ever be implemented, but the best thing that you can do is just building things that you think are cool, right? I mean, it's literally as simple as that. It's like like we mentioned, like finding a problem, solving it, but more importantly, it needs to be a problem that impacts you, and it needs to be a solution that you enjoy building and that you think is a cool solution, right? And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how practical the solution is or if anything will come out of it. What's important is that you enjoy building it and that you get something out of building it. Because if you do, if you learn from that experience, and if you build something valuable to at least you, it doesn't matter if it's valuable to other people, it's valuable to you, then you'll learn 10 times more than you'll ever learn taking a course or building somebody else's application or whatever, right? These are the experiences that form your foundation as a Web3 developer, in my opinion, at least. And this is, my experience, and I'm sure we can probably leave this for a next episode because there's just so many avenues to go down. But, the whole reason why I'm sitting here today is because of a project I built out of the FAFO ideology here, Amity DeFi, which was a Discord bot.
By the way, yes, when I was interviewing, so some background. I don't know how much of this we can share, but I was so impressed when I was interviewing. So some of the chainstackers who interviewed Ethan to get with Chainstack, they're like, "Wow, this guy is pretty impressive. Hey, can you talk to him?" I was like, "Yeah, okay, I'm gonna talk." When I saw Amity DeFi, I was impressed. I was very impressed. It was like, yeah, the UX, which is a big thing that's still missing from Web3, I guess. It was just so nice, and you could really feel, like you were saying this, and that it was a problem that you were solving. It was a problem that you were solving. You could really feel it's not, again, as I mentioned, it's not a Uniswap with badly done fork that people put on their portfolio, but it's something unique and something that the person behind it, in this case, was really solving the problem that existed for himself, probably first and foremost, and then for other people. So yeah, I just remember it. It's nice, super nice. I'm still part of the Discord. Yeah.
Yeah, it still operates. I mean, I haven't updated it in a million years, but it kind of works on its own. It stays up to date. It's really just using like Web3 and a few major packages, and it's probably all the packages are probably 10 versions outdated, but they work. So that's what's important. But yeah, that was my first major. That was that project alone, right? And it took me a long time to create that, to be honest. That took 2 years basically until it was completely finished. It started in like 2021-ish and really didn't end until like January 2023 of just like improving it, like changing things and stuff like that. And now it's finally to a point where like I don't really mess with it anymore. But that entire experience was, of course, like you mentioned, something that I identified and I wanted to solve. And that, when I was originally making it, I made it just because I enjoyed making it. And every time something worked, I liked it when it worked. And it was like, man, I spent 2 days trying to figure out why I can't get the swap to work with the Trader Joe's Avalanche router, and it finally works now. And that's, that was my happiness at the time. So that's why I built it, and that's why it is what it is today. And projects like that, where you just like find a problem, and similar to like the thing that I patented, is just like another example of, find a problem and I solved it, and I enjoyed the process, and I enjoy the end result. And that's what makes a difference in careers, but even further than careers, just like experience, right? Like creating things that you enjoy are, I mean, like that's why Apple and Microsoft exist. I mean, this is, that's where these every major company that you see that's like a consumer product, or like, somebody like Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, these are people that started something just because they wanted to start it. And it, of course, you don't need to create something that's the next Apple, but just, the important part is creating something that you enjoy and that makes you happy. And that's where you get the value from it, in my opinion.
Yeah. And I'm thinking, how much happier are you if you're literally in it for the tech? That's what I'm thinking. Again, instead of doing something that, that you're like the latest trend and you need to do, to do what everybody else is doing, and, to extract money out of it, which is good too. But how much happier are you if you're like, why, I'm not sure why I'm using this, but if you're chasing this dragon like for 2 years and then it works and it's perfect. I think, yeah, it's awesome. Something unique when you're building something unique and useful. I think it just gives you a lot of happiness and a lot of kind of satisfaction. Yeah, and everybody else can see it as well. I think your like network worth becomes much more valuable valuable as a result of this if you're not just going with the latest trend to do it for the for the money. That's what I think. Yeah.
In it for the tech. That's what everybody says they are. In it for the tech.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't mean that, but really, when you are actually in it for the tech, then it's a good experience. But
it's so satisfying. It's so satisfying. So yeah. Anybody listen to this, guys? This is what FAFO is about. It's literally in for the tech, and it works.
Just think of something and make it. That's pretty much my approach.
That's the way to do it. Today we've talked about a lot of topics. We've talked about, number one, of course, what FAFO is, why we started this podcast. I think so far the discussion that we had is a good example of just like, the essence of what we're doing today. We've talked about issues.mg, which was an awesome platform that Ake made. It goes through different GitHub issues that large repositories posit so that you can solve them and get experience and contribute to the space and create value. We also talked about the faucet that David and very slightly myself have been working on over the past few weeks, even few months, I guess few years if you want to count that, and was just recently released, and the intricacies with that and kind of what we've gone through with that. We also talked about some patents that I've personally done recently and my process with that, the kind of unique and kind of out there solutions that I came up with for some problems that I encountered. We also talked about Amity DeFi, which is another somewhat unique and out there solution that I made years back in 2020 and 2021. So everything that we talked about today are, prime examples of, why we've started FAFO and Chill. It's to talk about these things, to understand what's happening in the space, what are people making, get back to the essence of like why Web3 started, which was truly to build applications that push the bounds set in place by Web2 and traditional infrastructure. If we can get past that, then I think we've achieved the goal of Web3, and without the kind of bounds of markets and the extra stuff that happens on the side, the non-tech stuff. But anyways, yes, I think today has been a really great conversation. We're just over an hour now.
Yeah.
So Ake and David, are there any closing thoughts, any last topics that you want to touch on before we top it off here?
My closing thought is I'm not gonna be original. Like and subscribe and put down in the comments. Do you guys think we should be less chill, more chill, less FAFO, more FAFO? We're fighting our way. But we're definitely staying on the chill side. And you can, you don't have to watch this. You can listen on audio to it as well. And yeah, something else is we are truly international. I'm here in Singapore. It's 9 a.m. for me. Ethan is in the US. What time is it for you, Ethan?
It's about 7 p.m. for me.
7 p.m. Yeah.
Not the opposite.
And David, I think, takes the hardest hit. What time is it for you?
Yeah, for me it's 10, almost 10:30.
10 in Brazil. Yeah.
10 in the evening.
In Brazil. We have so much stuff to talk about. It's just, years worth if we just start talking about today. And then as we go, there's going to be more and more. Yeah. If you guys want us to touch on anything, again, comment, reach out. My DMs are always open. I'm pretty sure Ethan's and Dave's are as well. We are the developer experience guys, so we're always open. Talk to us. If there is a specific topic you want us to touch on, as long as it's not part of the intense FOMO or FUD, as long as it's part of FAFO, we'll be happy to.
FAFO experience.
Join Chainstack. Talk to me personally if you want. I can, if you're looking for a good Web3 infrastructure provider that's reliable, that's like has unbeatable pricing, customization, unlimited customization, unbounded performance, and if you want a custom, customization is also part of custom deals. If you want a custom deal, talk to me. We'll make it happen. And now it's a good time with the market today. It's your investors will appreciate if you talk to Chainstack and get a deal that has very good value for you. Anyway.
My closing thoughts are: if you think of something, do it. Just FAFO.
Yes.
That's
literally
that's my approach.
Yeah.
That's my approach.
A lot of people have the fear of the blank page. But in open source Web3, there is just tons of code flying around. If you're hearing the blank page, just pick some stuff and start fifing.
Just
And go
ask
from
Use
there.
ChatGPT.
Just
Use ChatGPT as well, yeah. Yeah.
We can talk,
By
we
the
can talk
way.
about that. Talk about that next time. It's a
Yeah,
that's
that
that's a
could be
whole
next
Yeah,
topic in itself.
AI,
Uh,
Chainstack. We
it's-
have tons of stuff that how we are utilizing this and doing
Yeah.
this.
Right.
And we have our partner. Shout out to Spaniel Labs, our partner as well, who's working with us on an AI solution as well that we are using.
Sure.
Anyway,
Well, awesome. Thank you, Ake. Thank you, David.
yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Like Ake mentioned, this podcast was hosted by Chainstack, which is the leading suite of services connecting developers with Web3 infrastructure. If you'd like to explore Chainstack and the various node infrastructure services that we offer, you can explore it at chainstack.com. We'll be doing these every once in a while, either every week or every other week, depending on the format that we start getting used to here. But you can explore these FAFO and Chill podcasts either on YouTube or probably in the future on other platforms like Spotify. We can probably hop on there as well. Some audio-only platforms as well.
Yeah, by the way, an easy to remember address is FAFO.show. Just go FAFO.show. It will redirect you to this playlist of FAFO on Chainstack YouTube channel.